Now, this ladder, if you have a look at the bottom 9 and you have your team in the bottom 9, well done to you, because that's where your team finished this year. It's a long way off the top 9, and that's okay. West Coast with a wooden spoon. Richmond probably performed above expectations in some regards, and North Melbourne won more games than they have since 2019. Of course, we know Essendon play against Gold Coast on Wednesday night. But the top 9 is fascinating, because every time you think you know something, Hirdy, something changes. And the big movers today, as I said before, the Brisbane Lions in the top 4 and the Giants and the Freo Dockers locking in home elimination finals.
Yeah, well, Fremantle's win against the Bulldogs was a great win for them. I think everyone thought they were the underdogs, and the way they played that second and third quarter was sensational. But it's the Bulldogs which is the story of the night, really, isn't it? With the squad they've got and the team they've got, and we all thought they were going to sneak in and do something serious in the final series, but it won't be for the Dogs in another year. It seems like every year they get to this last round of the year, and it's either in or it's out. It's been an interesting 5 or 6 years for them. So just that top 9 we saw there, if we can just get that up again, who are those bottom 4 teams in the 8 are most likely to challenge for a flag, do you reckon, this year?
I think there's capability with all of them, and we know with the Giants they can play a blistering quarter, and we've seen them do that, and we probably think if they're going to go deep into September, past the first week of finals, they're going to have to catch fire, but they probably still give the opposition plenty of looks, and we saw that in last year's finals. Fremantle, as you know, I say this every week, I'm very bullish on them because I don't think they want for much. The Hawks can play a high-tempo game. They push Brisbane all the way to the end tonight, and they're playing some really good footy. And then we just need to find out, well, clearly Gold Coast can get in, but they've always got the fact that this is their first ever finals campaign, and they're going to play away. I think it's been a fantastic achievement, but Anderson and Rao in the midfield can give you a look.
Yeah, they can, but it's been up and down the last 3 or 4 weeks with Gold Coast. I think that they look like they'll probably play a home final against Fremantle in Fremantle. So for me, I think it's GWS, Hawthorn and Freo, who are that bottom 4, can really win the first final and get up and challenge in the top 4.
So let's have a look at these finals. Just bearing in mind as well, the Giants have won 9 of their last 10, so they come into the finals with some form. 4 of those wins against top 9 teams. Jimmy, this is how we think it's looking. There's no confirmation from the AFL yet, but history would tell us that 1v4 is normally a Friday night game.
Yeah, we've tried to have a crack at it, but who knows with the AFL. We're thinking Adelaide, Collingwood, as you said, is normally the Friday night clash because you finish on top of the ladder, you get the prime time slot plus the longer rest. We're thinking Thursday night might be that Giants game there. If probably likely the Hawks.
I think Gold Coast have to win by 30 and above, 40 and above to make sure that it's Gold Coast, GWS Giants.
There we go. And then Saturday night, we've got that next elimination final, which is Freo at home. And then maybe the twilight one there, Geelong-Brisbane, because that then allows, obviously, if Brisbane win, to get back home and, you know, enough rest. That's just taking a stab in the dark, but roughly around that.
Sorry, mate, so GWS versus Hawthorn. If you were Hawthorn, you'd rather play GWS at home than go to Freo, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and then the other probably result too is Fremantle getting Gold Coast in their first ever finals campaign, having to go all the way the other side of the country to play it. So, although Hawthorn lost tonight, I don't think it's a massive loss in the scheme of the way the finals pan out.
All right, let's move to today's, what was a Marvel Stadium blockbuster this afternoon at Docklands. Probably Freo's biggest ever home and away game. They had to win to play finals, and they did just that. It was set up with a 7-0 second term. Hirdy, take us through the Lexus of Blackburn key moments.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. The Bulldogs got off to a great start in the first quarter and really looked like kicking away. I thought they really started well. Aaron Norton, following the first goal of the game out of the back of a marking contest, set the Bulldogs up. And then Shai Bolton back some really good form, picking James O'Donnell's pocket to snap a first quarter goal. It was fantastic. Jai missed dribbling a goal from the pocket the second quarter after missing one. There was a bit of simple, and then a miss snapping a set shot from the pocket to put Freo front midway through the second quarter, Jimmy. And the second quarter, to me, Jimmy, is when Freo really turned up the pressure. They put the pressure on, and the Dogs just couldn't handle the pressure there. Voss kicking a very nice goal out of the goal scoop, bursting out of the pack. The Bulldogs tried and came back late. But for me, it was the second and third quarter where the Fremantle pressure just closed down the Bulldogs' ability to use their hands.
Yeah, it's the second quarter again. Fremantle played them earlier in the year. They kicked 7 goals in the second quarter. Today, second quarter, they kicked another 7 goals. And it was that ability that we've touched on against the Dogs. If you can win the contest and surge the ball forward, you get some really good looks and some open players forward of the footy. Yeah,
and they just seem to be too strong up front too with their tall players, the Fremantle Dockers, and not really. We always talk about the Bulldogs' back 6 not being good enough, but for me, it's not just about the back 6. It's about their midfield as well, not having a defensive mindset.
And the big boys got a hold of the Dogs' defensive group, as you touched on. So Tracy, Amos and Voss, and then you throw in Jackson as well. 11 goals between those four.
So Luke Beveridge conceded after the game that they are looking for a defender. Jack Silvani, I think, is very much weighing up an offer from the Dogs as he is from the Pies, and also to stay at Carlton as well. So that could help fill that hole. The Western Bulldogs, they're an intriguing case because every year it feels like we've reached the last Sunday of the season and they've got to win to play finals or win to finish in the top four a couple of years ago, and often they have. Today they lost. We know there's still a slim chance that they can make the top 8 if Essendon beat Gold Coast on Wednesday night. But Luke Beveridge, after the game, suggested that his team had improved this year.
This is a year where there's been considerable growth. We just haven't been able to win that one or two more to give us that look that you're talking about, Josh. So that's just the way it is. We've got to accept that.
So, Jimmy, diving into this supposed improvement. So the Western Bulldogs, we know, have had issues against top 9 teams. We know that they've had 11 games against other top 9 teams. They've lost 9 of them. They've only beaten the Giants twice. Everyone else they've lost. So that doesn't bode well for them. But those losses, those 9 losses, come at an average of 13.9 points. So none more than 22 points. So they haven't been beaten badly by anyone. Really, the gap between finishing 9th this year and finishing 1st is about 2 or 3 goals. It's so tight. So what do you make of his comments?
Yeah, look, I agree with it, and in a lot of part. And I think the issue for him, and we've touched on this with the Dogs a bit, is it personnel or is it a bit of system the way they play? And we've always thought, well, do you move someone around behind the footy for stoppages or contested situations just to give you someone to catch the ones on the way through? Because what's happened is they're really great in attack and the ball is flowing. So you don't want to rob that. So he would have had this constant battle, Luke Beveridge and the coaching staff, because obviously when you got Bont and Richards and Libra and all these guys coming through the middle of the contest, kicking it to Darcy and Norton and West, it's top end. It's as good as any side. And the reason why they get a hold of the Giants is because they've got that midfield depth to overwhelm the Giants. And that's probably one flaw where the Giants are a little bit short once you get away from Greene and Callahan. I'm talking at the top end. So it's difficult for him to go, well, if we keep giving up something, will it take us away from our one wood, which is scoring? So it's a fascinating discussion that he'll have to have with his team, his list management. Is it personnel? Or do we actually have to go into summer and give up a little bit? Normally it's the other way around. You have to give up something to get some more score. Is he willing to give up a little bit of score to protect some score?
He's going to have to, though, Jimmy. I think we all marvel at the way they move the ball when they get their hands on it, with Bontempelli, with Richards, with different players around the midfield. But the way they get beaten is just the same way. I mean, if you can stop their midfield going forward, we're going to show some vision of Fremantle bursting their bubble and getting the ball going their way and taking out some of their midfielders. This is all the Footscray players, the Western Bulldogs players on the wrong side of the contest. Ball comes out, they're at the front of the contest. Too easy to get it to your forward line. Look here again. Ball comes out, hands out. All the Bulldogs players are the wrong side of the contest and not prepared to do the defensive work. I marvel and I love the way they move the ball when they've got it in their hands. But when they lose the ball around the contest, it's too easy for other teams to score. And it's happened over and over. Beautiful handball and movement from the Fremantle Dockers there. But I just think against the best teams happens over and over and over again. And I thought I heard, and I did hear in the press conference him talking about Luke Beveridge talking about pressure around the contest. And it is the pressure. It's a pressure around the contest. And I would imagine next year they'll go in with a similar midfield, but bring some sort of defensive midfielder in and more emphasis on pressure around the contest.
Yeah, and whether you structure that with a winger who comes around behind the contest, because look, if you get a long high ball in, you can cover not being as talented as some other defenders, but they're relying on pure talent behind the football to stop that. Because if a midfielder or a half forward who's come up the contest and they're able to look up like that inside forward 50, which those edits Hirdy showed, well, you're only hoping for it to be a bad kick, but it only needs to be kicked to advantage and you've got no chance.
And it really put the way that Fremantle made Bulldogs move the ball meant that the pressure, the Fremantle backline had a lot of pressure on the Bulldogs forwards and really did a great job. Pierce did a fantastic job on Darcy. Tom, I mean, I know you and Luke Beveridge have had your moments through the time, but you know, is it too early for them to sign? You're the sort of the guy who knows about stuff. Was it too early to sign, or was it the right time to sign him? Because I think everyone thinks that 14 wins is a pretty good season.
Yeah, no one in the top 8 era has ever missed finals with 14 wins. So this is an anomaly of a season. When they re-signed him, they were 6-6 and 9th. So they haven't really improved since then. I think with a coach that's taken your club to a flag and taken your club to a grand final, you deserve the benefit of the doubt. And I think at 6-6, they were playing such good footy, he deserved the benefit of the doubt that time. But I don't think in 2 years' time, if they're in the same situation, he gets afforded that same luxury. What do you think?
No, I think that's right. I think they definitely should have signed him. I think the way they played towards the back end of the year, winning some games, they must be very disappointed at not getting across the line here. But they've got to do something about a defender in their back six. They have to do something about defensive midfield, and I don't think their bottom six, week in, week out, are as strong as some of those top sides.
The big question they've got now, from a trade and free agency perspective, is Jamarra Ugle-Hagan. We've spoken about how delicate this is and how difficult it is for the club.
Is it a big question or is it obvious? I mean,
No, the answer is obvious. The working out is difficult. Right. So the answer that he won't be at the club is now patently obvious for anyone.
So what do you mean by working out? Is that...
so did they try to trade it? Do they try to trade him?
An agreement on payout?
Yep,
is it an agreement on another club picking up some of the wage?
Jimmy, realistically, which club is going to take Jamarra Ugle-Hagan right now? There's not a trade. There's not a trade for him. So it's actually not having him on the list.
Yep. So then, okay, if you're going to pay him out, do you pay him out his $900K? Do you try to work out an agreement where you pay him out half of that? That is what needs to be nutted out with his management and also the AFL. And those are the conversations that will happen now over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Do you think he realises the predicament he's in terms of the way the AFL landscape views him?
I can't speak for him, but I think his behaviour would suggest otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
is there a world that another club takes him? In this off-season?
I'd be shocked if he's on a list next year. Yep, he's got a lot of work to do that. Not saying he can't play AFL again, but just the way it's going is, I don't think he's going to beat the Dogs, and I don't think another club's going to take him. So that's one to watch in the next few weeks. And as I said, really delicate, but something that the football club needs to work through. The Freo Dockers are a club that I've got huge respect for because of the way Justin Longmuir's coached them and the pressure they've been under. And they've had some poor performances. But this was a sudden death elimination final, and they got the job done, Jimmy. You must have been super impressed.
Yeah, and the Dogs were all over them in the first 10 to 15 minutes of that game in particular. They got lots of inside forward 50s, and we touched on Alex Pearce, but I thought Brennan Cox did a really good job in manoeuvring his direct opponent underneath the football, and then they dialed up the pressure around the contest. So whenever the Dogs were able to actually force the ball inside 50, it was long and high, which gave their defensive group, and then they started to get out the front of the stoppage. Sarong, have a look at this, just an absolute laser. That is Thursday night footy training with the white shirt and the full forward coming out from out of the car park sort of stuff. Hayden Young, I thought they managed his minutes really smartly because we've touched on how actually impactful he could be through the finals, and then the three big bananas on the forward line got going, and then the ruck combinations. And we always say this, and that's why we think Freo can be a very good side, is a key defensive post lockdown. They get plenty run and punch from behind the footy. Brayshaw and Sarong, two rucks, enough forwards and some creative players like Murphy Reid for a first-year player. He just gets himself involved in big moments and has big plays. Yeah,
and we've got his rising star odds coming up soon with Julian Valance as well. Just on the Freo Dockers, they backed their coach to the hilt. He's on a rolling contract now, as Luke Ryan told us after the game on ABC Grandstand.
I reckon absolute bullshit, to be honest. We all love him inside the four walls. He cops it so much for unnecessary reasons. They tell us to move the ball quicker. They tell you all these other things, but then we win one game, they're all over us. They love us, and then we lose one game, and then he's the worst coach in the AFL again. So it's a load of bullshit, and we love what he's doing, and couldn't ask for a better coach.
Look, they're great comments to hear from a player about his coach. And, I mean, the reason that he is a very good coach is that they went to score on the Bulldogs. If you want to beat the Bulldogs, you've got to put pressure around the ball. You've got to make sure you get the ball going their own way and then get it into that your forward line as quickly as possible. They did that. Their hands around the contest were elite. They got it in quickly. And that took a lot of work from Justin Longmuir. I mean, think about what would have been going through their heads after the Brisbane loss. They would have been thinking the season's done, to pick his team up off the ground.
He backed them in though, didn't he?
Yeah, and get them to play the way they played is fantastic coaching, and all credit should go to he and the coaching staff for that.
One of his comments there, everyone's telling us to move it quicker. That was actually trying to be a positive for Freo. When they do move the ball a little bit quicker, they are so dangerous and so dynamic. So I know they probably thought that was a massive slide against them, but it was actually, when I say for Freo to move the ball quicker, is because I have so much trust in how well they are as a defensive group. So you can actually lean into that a little bit and trust, hey, if we go quick, we've got some pretty good group behind us to defend it. So not everything is a negative as they think.
Yeah, Craig McRae said that after their game as well.
Yeah, they did. They have to be able to do that. But staying over in the West, Oscar Allen. I mean, there's reports today, I think you reported it today on Channel 9 News, that he is off to the Brisbane Lions. Is that confirmed? And what will West Coast get back in return?
Yeah, the West Coast Eagles ended up confirming this, that Oscar Allen has asked to move to the Brisbane Lions as a free agent. Now, he's a restricted free agent, so the club still has a choice whether they want to let him go and get the compensation, which is likely to be pick 2. We're not 100% sure, but looks that way, or match the bid and force a trade. The interesting thing with Oscar Allen is just the way this relationship between player and club has fallen away over the past few months. He's the co-captain of the club.
Wasn't that pretty obvious after that Sam Mitchell? I mean, it just felt like the way West Coast handled that, where they rolled him out front and made him almost apologise. It was like, well, that's not going to go down well.
So Oscar Allen didn't like that, and his teammates didn't like the way the club made him do that. They thought it was awkward. They thought it was pretty poor management. And by the same token, the club didn't like the way Oscar Allen did a radio interview last Friday in which he said that the contract talks had reached a stalemate. So I'm not going to say it's a bitter split. That's too far. But the two parties certainly don't leave on the best terms.
Well, he just hasn't looked like he's wanted to play footy. I mean, he knows he's been injured, but when he came back and playing, he hasn't looked happy, and probably be good for both parties. Yep,
and I don't know what it says about free agency that the captain of a club goes from the bottom team to the reigning premiers. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. It's Toby time, and Toby Greene is the hottest hand of the round thanks to Lexus of Blackburn. 3 goals in a remarkable 40-minute slot where he willed the Giants over the line. They wouldn't have won without him, Hirdy. How good was that period of play for the Giants captain?
There's absolutely no doubt they wouldn't have won it without him. That 40 minutes from just before the three-quarter time to the end of the game was sensational. Those last 2 marks to sort of slow the game down, the 3 goals really put them in front. To me, it was the best 40 minutes I've seen this year.
Wow.
And it was just great to watch Toby Greene not that he's old, but it was Toby Greene of old, and great to watch, and the Giants got across the line.
It just shows that he's still got it. I know that he's been playing some good football and at times exciting football, but we haven't seen that sort of spell of football from him for a few years.
Well, it's taking their responsibility, of course. No Stringer and no Hogan. And he can then choose whether he wants to go back to the goal square with his matchup, or as we've seen with Toby, what gets underestimated with his footy is his work rate. He's got an enormous work rate for a mid-sized forward, can get up and down the ground, and he's incredibly smart. He knows where to run the angles and where to take his opponent.
So the Giants were made to work very hard for this one. They've had a good finish to the season, beating the Gold Coast Suns well last week, and then the Saints were excellent all day, having won four in a row themselves. They've now won enough games to book a home elimination final. Jimmy, take us through the Lexus of Blackburn key moments.
Yeah, you're right there, Tom. The Saints were excellent all day, and what they did really well was take away the Giants' run and rebound for most of the game. The side Wanganeen, well, they were setting up Darcy Wilson, who actually kicked 5 goals for the day. It was a magnificent game from him, 23 and 5. Have yourself a day to finish the season. You mentioned Toby Greene. Well, he had 17 and 4 as well. Harry Himmelberg in game 200. Turnover led to Hugo Garcia setting up Wilson for another goal, of course. And Jacob Weir sets up Callum Brown to put the Giants back in front. So the Giants, every time you thought they were going to get out in front, the Saints reeled them in. And that's actually then put the pressure on the Giants going into that last quarter, going, well, hang on, they need to actually get their backside into gear, get some actually pace on the game to catch up to the Saints. They're holding the ball here for Tom Greene, who was excellent and massive in the last quarter. Second greatest contested possession quarter in the Giants' history, plus 24, and because Tom Greene had 10 in the last quarter alone. Darcy Jones was dynamic as well, 6 score involvements in the last quarter. Some big ball winners, Whitfield and Ash again had over 30, and Sinclair had over 30 for the Saints. And here we go, Darcy Jones just capping off. This was the sealer, of course, 30 seconds ago, and as you mentioned, home final for the Orange Tsunami.
The Saints' ball movement got through the Giants a few times, I heard. Is that cause for some concern?
Yeah, I think so for the Giants. It's been a worry all year, I think, the way that the clubs can get up from back 50 to forward 50 against the Giants. We see here against St Kilda, just a little bit too easy moving it into the Giants' defensive 50, which puts so much pressure on those key defenders. I mean, they're great defenders down there, and Taylor and Iden, Himmelberg, and when Jack Buckley comes back. But the Saints were able to expose the Giants at certain times, and this is why I think that if the Giants don't tidy this up, Jimmy, against the really good teams, look at the ball movement here, just far too easily to get it through the midfield and out to the other side of the ground, and really exposing the Giants defenders with that good ball movement.
Kieran Briggs had a great battle with Rowan Marshall, but the second ruck, or even someone to challenge Kieran Briggs for the #1 rock spot.
Yeah, I'm really worried about it. I mean, Jake Riccardi's a very good forward, but putting him in the ruck, every time he seems to go in the ruck, St Kilda seem to get a goal, or get a shot at goal. So I think, is it Madden, their second ruckman?
Yeah, he's had a couple of runs.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him come back in. It's always hard to play 2 ruckmen when you're playing with a sub, but just to give them more oomph around the ball.
So you'd bring him back in for the finals?
Well, I'm not sure, but I just think they've got to have another alternative to Riccardi. And Riccardi's only, what was he, 6'4". He's not built like a ruckman, but just felt like every time he went into the ruck, St Kilda got an advantage.
So the game tonight at the Gabba was a thriller. The Brisbane Lions were too good for the Hawks in the end by 10 points. As I said, it booked a double chance for them in September. Hirdy, take us through the Alexis of Blackburn key moments. And there was lots of them in this game, with Josh Dunkley absolutely dominant throughout and the Lions kicking inaccurately for the entire night.
Yeah, well, 11 goals, 23, 34 scoring shots to 11 goals, 13, 24 scoring shots. Hawthorn kept themselves in it with some really good shots of goal. Marbio Chol kicked 3 goals early, Chol. And I think, to me, Jimmy, it was about Brisbane had a dominant game. They won the ball in the forward half. They kept it in their forward half. Sam Mitchell before the game said it's not about Brisbane's uncontested game, it's about their forward half game, and he was right. I mean, Brisbane got their uncontested mark game going late, but Hawthorn really kept themselves in the game by some straight kicking and some desperation, some real efficiency with the ball in hand, but it was just too much weight of with the Brisbane Lions. Eventually, if you give them that many scoring shots, 34, even though they did kick 11 goals, 23, they're going to get across the line.
Yeah, it felt like the game pretty much was started in Brisbane's front half or Hawthorn's back half. Hawthorn did some good ball movement change, which we know they can do that. They get really good tempo coming off their half-back line. Of course, Carl Amon having a lot of the ball and Impey, but then you start to absorb pressure that way, and the Lions could have, as you said, make them really pay by playing that front half game, which we'll dig into some of their numbers. But then Rayner, who started the game, didn't have a touch in the first quarter. He's finished with a big day with 22 and 2. You know, McCluggage, which had another monster game, but plenty of winners across the ground. All those mid-forwards who can push forward, start to overwhelm the Hawks. What
it does show is that both teams are very good teams and good, and will go a long way to affecting the finals. Whether Hawthorn, if they finish 8th, can go all the way with the it's very hard from 8th. But Brisbane, with their injuries, still able to just keep backing up and backing up. They've got significant injuries, probably 4 or 5 players that come back in the first week of the finals, even make them even stronger. But that Geelong-Brisbane game, first final at the MCG, is going to be a cracker. And the winner of that almost becomes the favourite along with Adelaide. Yeah, and I think they want to take that game style they played against the Hawks against the Cats, because you want to keep it away from that high-powered Cats forward line and the smalls from the Cats as well. And you mentioned they had so many shots at goal. 6 goals, 14 they kicked from turnover, and 4 goals, 17 from front half change. So they were able to actually set up the ground really well, but then they just couldn't convert. Now, probably a lot of those scores and behinds is because if you're kicking behinds, well, then you're in a really good spot to turn the footy back over from a kick in. But this was, I guess, a bit of a snapshot, the way the game was played throughout the night. I think Hawthorn did really well. They just lost their composure at different times where they gave away some errant handballs when they were trying to break that chain. And it seemed like Hawthorn was trying to handball their way through a lot more, where, as we know with the Lions, they prefer to kick and pick their way through it. It'd be interesting to hear what Sam Mitchell said about the way they wanted to play, because they definitely did not want to kick the ball, kick the ball back. It was a handball away, chipped away through, and sometimes you do turn the ball over. Hugh McCluggage, what a game he played on the weekend. I mean, he's just turned into an absolute star. All-Australian, I would say, Jimmy.
I hope so.
Are you on the All-Australian selection pad?
No.
You're not? No. OK, well, you can give it away.
I think you'd be excellent.
I think you should. But look at this, just 32 disposals, 3 clearances, 11 score involvements and 2 goals. He was a huge player and will be a very important player going into the final series.
Yeah, and had 5 shots. And so, and that's what we love from Hugh McCluggage, the way he just powers through the game. You think when everyone's starting to tire and fatigue, he seems to be the next guy out to the footy. He's a star.
Yep. So crunching the numbers, to pass Hawthorn on percentage, Gold Coast need to win by about 30 points. That's assuming they score 100 and Essendon score 70. Clearly, if Gold Coast score less than that, it needs to be less than 30 points as well. So that's the margin to get past Hawthorn in 7th spot, which would mean the Dogs drop out from 8th to 9th. That's all happening on Wednesday night.
Furnace, presented by Lexus of Blackburn, where luxury meets performance and footy passion drives everything they do.
All right, very exciting now. Burning questions. Let's get straight to it. We'll start with Collingwood Hirdy, and Collingwood's been a team that's been top of the rundown for the past few weeks. They've got a big final to play against the Adelaide Crows in a couple of weeks' time. But my question to you, can the Pies win it both the Crows game and the entire thing, moving the ball the way they currently do?
No, I heard my premiership teammate Matthew Lloyd talk about this morning about their slow ball movement, and I agree with him. They need to get some speed on the ball. They haven't got a forward line that they can kick long to and sit under the ball. And Max Gawn just really took them to school when they kicked down the line. If they're going to win it, they need to get the ball off the line, get it over the other side of the ground. Take those big guys out of the play, because they don't have a forward at present, unless they decide to go with Mason Cox and use him as a target. But at the moment, they're getting beaten by tall defenders or ruckmen sitting back there who are stopping their ball coming over. You've got to take the ball off the line, Jim. You've got to change the angles, because they just have a smaller forward line.
Are you, just on Collingwood, are either of you concerned that of the top 9 teams, they clearly have the worst record in the past 10 weeks? Like, they go into the finals in the worst form of any of those teams.
Yeah, but I think you'll take a lot out of the win the other night. And I think I said this the other day or the other week here. It was the whole point of having all that experience means that you don't lose your head. And so you lean into it. You have to look at Scott Pendlebury's last quarter. They will navigate their way through it. I've seen them at different times think, well, if we kick as they call it, a dirty ball in there, at least then we're not going long down the line. We can get some ground balls going. But, yeah, they shouldn't just avoid at all costs kicking long down the line. And
they've got a guy called Jordan De Goey who's coming back into some form, and I can't wait to see him in 2 weeks' time.
And they've managed him absolutely perfectly based on what we saw the other night. Jimmy, is Max Gawn the most valuable player to any club in the competition, and why, if so?
The old MVP debate. I don't mind this, Tom, where you're going, and Hirdy touched on their Collingwood going long down the line, and Big Max was dominant the other night. So in basketball, they use the term plus-minus. Well, the other night it was pretty obvious. Every time Max came off the ground, Collingwood scored from stoppage. Every time Max was on the ground, Melbourne looked so dynamic and back to their old best from stoppage. Nearly a 5-goal differential, so points difference, if you will. So plus 29, and of course they're minus 13 with him off the field. So as far as value goes to his team, he's right up the pointy end.
Yeah, he's as clear as the club's best player of all time as any current player is at a club, isn't he? Like, he...
Well, you know Melbourne history better than...
Yeah, there's been some great players.
He's got a scarf that he normally is in most days.
But just look at his record and his impact. Anyway, we go into it every week, but he's not getting any worse, and he's 34, and he could play for another 2 or 3 years at the level he's playing at. Paul Guerra was on many different radio stations yesterday doing the rounds, talking about the future of the club, and this piqued my interest when he was asked about Christian Petrarca.
Do you see Christian Petrarca running out round 1 2026 in a Melbourne jumper?
I hope so.
Tell you why that's interesting, because last year when Simon Goodwin was asked whether Petrarca would be there, he said yes. If you asked, I don't know, Luke Beveridge for a contracted Marcus Bontempelli, he'd say yes, they're going to be here.
But isn't that an honest answer?
Hope so means that the door is somewhat ajar.
Good, but could you give him a little pass? It was his first round of interviews.
Yeah, I'm not
hope so. No, I'm not. No, but I'm just saying it could have been. I hope so. We're just in a real informal sort of session, having a chat.
I think he'll learn though. There's no informal.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
He's actually a pretty experienced media performer, Paul. And I would have thought that they'd have conversations behind the scenes around particular players. I can't see a world where Petrarca goes, but why wouldn't he just say yes?
Maybe. I've got a question for you though.
Okay,
so the AFL, they've appointed Tom Harley and Greg Swan.
Yep.
How's Andrew Dillon gone this year?
Oof, that's such a good question. I don't think Andrew Dillon has a reputation or a brand that is fundamentally him. I think people like him. I think people respect him. I think he delegates well. I think he...
What do you mean by that, not fundamentally him?
Because I don't think we know what he stands for yet. He's been in the role for 18 months and he's consulted widely with clubs, with other people. He's reshaped his department. But I'm not sure that I think he's trying to please everyone without actually pleasing anyone. And we've seen that last week with the decision around Isaac Rankin. And we've seen it before as well, where the AFL continually gets caught in situations which is embarrassing for the league. So I think Andrew Dillon is an excellent operator, but I think he's listening to HR too much. I think he's listening to lawyers too much. And I think he needs to just be a bit stronger and say, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it.
So do you think that decision around Isaac Rankin was his fundamentally to go from 5 to 4?
I don't know whose decision it was to go from 5 to 4.
Well, when you say the AFL made that decision,
it makes it look weak. Yeah.
But you're referring that back to Andrew Dillon, or because that
ultimately Tim.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
Ultimately Tim, and I don't think the issue with Isaac Rankin was that it was 4 and not 5. The issue was that it became 4 after being 5.
Yeah,
if you give him 5, stick with 5. That's the.
But what I'm asking is, you think that is his imprint on that decision?
Well, I don't think he has enough of an imprint and isn't strong enough to make the right calls and make the odd captain's call that needs to be made for the good of the league.
So would it be fair then, in summarising that, the consultation piece is great because that's what clubs and players and association were asking for. But it's then just putting his stamp on it. And is it more just the actual delivery in the media when the microphone's in front? Would that...
Yeah.
Well, no, but that's not what you're saying, because
that's why I'm
the
asking.
decisions that are made in the first half of the year were highly critical of it, around some of the decisions that were made. Bringing those two guys in would say that they needed stronger leadership.
That's super important, and he's never going to be supernatural in front of the media like Greg Swan is, or even Tom Harley or Gil McLaughlin, so I'll give him a pass on that. But I just think he needs to be stronger in decision-making and be prepared to piss a few people off. And I don't think he's prepared to do that enough at the moment.
That's a strong point there, Tom. Hirdy, yes. Andrew McQualter, speaking of listening to press conferences, I heard this after they went down. I thought they were a little bit braver this weekend. I want you to take a listen to this and then get your reaction.
And I'm certain we've gotten better this year. I really believe that. I know the win-loss record doesn't tell us that, but we've got evidence now to show what we do and the way we're trying to play, and these guys can really stack up against the best. Now it's about getting to work to be able to do it for 120 minutes.
Well, I've got evidence that it's not. And it's always hard to build a list. I think sometimes you've got to go backwards before you go forwards. But if we put some numbers up here and we talk about improving, points for, they've gone backwards. Points against, they've gone backwards. Contested possession differential, they've gone backwards by 9. Inside 50 differential, they've gone backwards. Clearance differential, they've gone backwards. And scores per inside 50, they've gone backwards. They're the worst ever clearance differential recorded by a team in AFL history since 1999.
What, for a season or...?
For the season, yeah, the worst ever clearance differential. That to me says it's a very, very, very disappointing year. And I do understand when a new coach comes in with a new group, you can go backwards. But to say they've improved, I'd love to hear where he thinks they've improved.
They're just trying to sell hope. They've won 19 quarters this year. Yeah. 19 quarters.
Do you think they've improved?
No.
No.
No one in their right mind actually thinks they've improved.
Yeah, so and I understand you are trying to sell hope and say that, but sometimes you just got to say, look, we need to go backwards before we can go forwards. And I actually understand that as a club, because you've actually got to change the way the team plays. The way Adam Simpson played the football and the way McQualter plays football is different, and sometimes you've got to get worse to get better. Yeah,
and the big decisions there are Liam Ryan, who I think wants to go. It just depends where he gets to. He's a contracted player. And also Harley Reid, which is the big decision, whether he seeks a trade or decides to re-sign at the West Coast Eagles. Good burning questions. We've got more to come after this. Some more burning questions now. Let's start with Damien Hardwick talking after the game against Port Adelaide on Saturday night. If Gold Coast don't make finals from here, it is an almighty choke. They still have the best chance they can with a win over Essendon on Wednesday night. But Hardwick was fairly critical of the umpires.
Oh, I thought the umpires got caught up in the emotion of the game. Can happen.
What was about the emotion?
Well, asking the wrong bloke the wrong question. Maybe ask the umpiring department.
Hirdy, you've got some history of the umpires. What do you make of those comments from the coach of a club?
Obviously, he's frustrated. Obviously, frustrated with the free kick count. It was heavily weighted towards Port Adelaide, but I think it's just best as a coach or a player or anyone just to zip your mouth and keep your frustration. As much as you want to say something, if you do want to say something, take it up to the umpiring department afterwards.
Sounds like a former umpire ambassador.
A couple of years I was the umpire ambassador, did a good job.
Do you think, Jimmy, that the Suns need to play some finals for a couple of years in order to contend, or can they contend this year?
Of course you can. You just got to get yourself in the finals and you can contend. I know a lot of people will think, oh, you've got to go there a few times, but what's to say that you can't get on a roll?
What about the Crows? They haven't been there for a while. Since 2017 it was they last played finals.
Oh, they haven't. I was in the gym with my youngest son on Friday before the game, and the Crows were in the same gym. And they looked relaxed and professional. It was just great to see a professional group of people looking so relaxed the night before a game. And Ben Keys had an amazing start. I was just watching him and had a bit of a chat to him. He looked ready to go Friday night, so I wasn't surprised when he hit his straps on Saturday. But the climb they have had and the 6 years under Matthew Nicks, you can just see they're all playing as a unit, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they can go all the way.
Well, I think we'll dive more into their rebuild next week and really dive into exactly how they did it and why it succeeded so far. Who was benching more in the gym, you or Ben Keys, Hirdy?
Definitely not me. I think my 16-year-old boy was benching more than me, so definitely not me.
Jeremy Cameron, what do you make of the way he's playing at the moment? 4 goals, 4 on the weekend, 83 for the year.
Looks to me a bit out of sorts. I think to me, I think that 100 got to him a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and maybe not being as just natural and with what he'd normally do, looking for those goals. I think Jimmy, now that the finals have come, he'll loosen up and play more his natural game. But I'm not sure, Jimmy, was it just a bit of... I mean, he's still kicking, he's doing lots of shots at goal, but just doesn't look as free-flowing and as natural as perhaps he has done in the past.
Well, leading into that Essendon game where we thought he was going to kick a massive total down there at GMHBA Stadium, and he still ended up with a lot of shots, but leading up to that game, he was one of the best converters at set shots. I just think he's lost a little bit on his routine, and as you said, he's getting plenty of shots, he's getting them in good spots. He's just, the conversion is down on his lofty standards.
Port Adelaide, they're an interesting club at the moment because they're a club in transition. Josh Carr is no longer there, and Ken Hinkley's someone you know very well, Jimmy, but I think it's an indictment on Port that this year their best has been so good and their worst has been so bad. Like wins over Hawthorn, Giants and Gold Coast were stirring victories. How can a club be so high on emotion at times and so flat at other times? How can that possibly happen?
Well, I think that's the way Ken has tried to spark the team. I think if you look across the board with the talent they've got, and they've run into some sides who have more than matched them through the midfield and then opened them up, I guess, in transition or on the outside of the game. And obviously, Georgiades been very good. Butters has had a very good year. Rosie's been good. But he's probably used those emotional cards to try and get them up. And after some time, if sides can actually just match you in the first 10 minutes of each quarter, well, then it starts to wear thin. And we saw that under Ken this year. They've had some of their biggest losses ever because the emotions worn off in the game and they haven't been within 4 goals and just let the rope go.
Yeah, I think the emotion sort of tends to come too when you know the coach is finished for the year. I think Josh Carr's under a fair bit of pressure, not because of the coach he was or the coach he's going to be or because of what he's done, but he's replacing an excellent coach who's done a really good job, and it'll be interesting to see if they don't succeed what happens.
So 297 games, a win-loss record of almost 60%, 7 final series, 13 years. Broadly a success, even though they didn't make a grand final. How do you measure Ken Hinkley's tenure?
Absolutely a success. I mean, that record and to make that many final series, make prelims is absolutely a success. I think, yes, you'd all want to live a premiership, want to win a premiership, but to win that many games and get to that many final series is a success in my mind.
I'm a bit different. Very, very good, been an excellent coach, not successful. I just measure success, you win premierships. And people will go, oh, these great players are excellent. They're legends, they're icons of the game. But as far as a coach goes, you coach to win a premiership, and that's success.
That's the challenge ahead for Josh Carr, leading a club in transition.